Here we go, friends. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the line, I'm going to make one introduction first and then a second one because Chuck Zukowski is an old friend of the show. He's from UFOnut.com. He is on the line with me. And just to set this up, I contacted Chuck a few weeks ago and I'm like, hey, you want to come back on the show? To which Chuck said, I have something coming up. Let's wait. Chuck, welcome to the show yet again.
Hey, thank you very much for having me back on. Oh, yeah, I knew this was coming up, and I said, if I'm going to release any type of new information, it's going to be on your show.
There, I appreciate it. Well, Chuck, we talk about twice a year about UFOs and the world of the weird and such. Today, you bring a friend with you that you found out you actually went to school with and never had any idea. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Kimbler is on the line as well. Hey, Frank, you there?
Yeah, this is Frank Kimbler. Absolutely.
Kimbler, excuse me.
Oh, no, that's just call me anything except late for dinner. It works for me. Yeah, no, it's. I'm happy to be on the show with Chuck and you, and help to disclose some of our fantastic discoveries that we have made at the Roswell Crash Site.
Yeah, you said it well right there. Real quick, just so everybody knows, Frank is an associate professor Earth Science at the New Mexico Military Institute. Degrees and very educated, right, sir?
Yes. Master's degree in geology, and I teach both college and high school, so I wear two hats.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
That's my professional work when I'm not out looking for little bits of metal at the Roswell Crash Site and a few other places as well.
All right. Well, let's not bury the lead here. Let's get to it. The big reason that Chuck had us wait for this is because you guys went back out to the Roswell Crash Site in New Mexico, and you may have found something, or you did find something. Is it alien? Kind of out there, but what did we find, guys?
We found some more debris. I mean, I found a piece back in 2002. Frank and I went out there again June 3rd and found a couple of pieces of debris, had them analyzed, and then we went back again one more time somewhere around June 29th, found some more debris, had it analyzed, and we're coming up with some really, really interesting analysis from the stuff we're finding out in the middle of the desert, 6 inches under the ground. Go ahead, Frank. Why don't you tell them the type of metal we found?
Yeah, the metals that we're finding out there, they are aluminum alloys, and there's one particular aluminum alloy which is called a 6000 series. Now, interesting thing about this is that all of these alloys have designations, and you can look them up in the global catalog of registered alloys. So 1000 series is like aluminum foil, and 2000 series is, they all have different designations to them. So 3000 is a can, 5000 is also a can. But this stuff was a 6000 series alloy that's in thin sheets that are all kind of folded and mangled up. And it really should not be out there, and not even in that form. So it is a true anomaly. I have no idea why this stuff is out there.
Frank, my question real quick, and Chuck, I'll let you keep going here in a second, but does this stuff occur naturally?
No, it does not. This is something that is manufactured.
It ended up in this place somehow, is what we're saying, right? It
ended up out there somehow, some way, and you have to understand the remoteness of this. It is in the middle of nowhere. It's the desert, and there's just nothing there.
So what's cool about this is the pieces that I had analyzed at the Colorado Metallurgical Company, and they specialize in aluminum alloys. They're looking at these pieces under a microscope, and they're saying, whatever this little tiny piece is, it experienced extreme trauma, explosive in nature that destroyed it. And he's looking at the ripped edges, 15 microns, 25 microns, which is really small, 10 times 6 to minus 6, right? 1 times 10 to the minus 6, actually. And he's looking at it saying, whatever caused this piece to look the way it is, completely just mangled, was some type of explosive event. So now we have these little pieces of metal that are found at the proposed Roswell crash debris site, which tells us that we can almost guarantee, or pretty much guarantee, that something did crash or did explode there, because now we have evidence in these aluminum alloy fragments. Would you say that's true, Frank?
No, that is not no true, but yes, it is.
No, Chuck, you're full of S.
Chuck, you're like all wrong, and this is all fake stuff. No, it is yes. The material. I've had other scientists look at similar stuff. Yes, it's gone through an explosion. It's been melted. It's been through a fire. It's been through incredible amounts of trauma, and it is to have that metal look like that. It looks like something typical that you would find from something that exploded, literally. And I've looked at aircraft like forensic files, where in pictures of things that have blown up in the not in the atmosphere, but blown up in the air from maybe a terrorist attack or whatever, or hit the ground and exploded. It is the same kind of twisted, mangled up, ripped to shreds pieces of metal. That's what we've got, and it's very unusual out there.
Chuck Zukowski and Frank Kimbler, correct? Did I get it right that time?
Correct.
Yeah. I always have a thing about last names, and I apologize again. But all right, guys. So we found something in the proposed Roswell crash site. Let me ask you. I've got a couple questions. Now, you talked about the remoteness of this crash site. It can be just a rough guess, but how far from civilization is this?
Yeah. What kind of civilization? If you're talking about a ranch house, 5 miles,
okay,
maybe 6 to the nearest ranch house, and probably 25 air miles to the nearest small town.
Okay.
Yeah,
now,
and then about 2.5 hours from Roswell, probably about 2.5 hours from Roswell. But this is an area, completely desolate area, where sheep and cow actually, pasture, and you do have, a couple of scattered ranch houses around that area. But, you go out there, and if you look at it, you're in the high desert, basically.
Okay. So it's remote. It is very remote, is what we're saying, right?
Absolutely.
It is.
All right.
Yeah,
so
very remote.
These pieces of metal, this alloy, this 6000 series, it had to get there somehow. Where and how is this material used? Like, is this something humans can make? Are we saying it's not something we can make? Where are we on that?
The 6000 series alloys are normally used in aerospace.
Okay.
But they are used. It's used for cladding. That's like skin of aircraft, and it's usually very thick.
Okay.
For that cladding, it's also used as structural members because it can be welded. So how it got out there, it's also used for. I was making jokes about this because the 6000 series alloys have been used to make the thick-walled beer kegs. I was saying that maybe the aliens had a kegger out there, and so it was.
You say that, but what if?
Yeah.
We never think about Earth as, if you do go down the aliens route on this, maybe Earth is a gravel road out somewhere where the aliens go to have their kegger.
There you go. Now, the interesting thing about this alloy, though, is when you start looking at the elements that we're picking up in lab analysis, and what's interesting is I've done lab analysis here in Colorado. Frank does it in New Mexico. 2 different states, 2 different places we're doing the analysis, yet we're coming up with the same results, which means they're good results, basically, because it's not one lab having some issues with their instruments that maybe we get some wrong results. But after analyzing this stuff and looking at the numbers compared to the elements, it's coming up in a 6000 series, but a non-registered, commercially registered alloy in the 6000 series. So we can't really pin it down to any one type of alloy. Is that true, Frank?
That is an important key point because we keep saying that it's a 6000 series, but what happens on this? There is a catalog, a registry, and all the universities have it, all the metallurgical laboratories have it. And you can take all of these abundances of elements that are within the alloy, and you can go and look it up and see where it falls in the big catalog of global alloys. And this one, 6000 series, doesn't fit. It's not a registered alloy. Granted, it could be some kind of top secret thing, could be some kind of military thing, and those things are not registered. It is anomalous. It is an unregistered 6000 series alloy, according to the data that we have.
So is it
Cool.
kind of the layman's term version, kind of what you're talking about, it's recipe, right?
It's a recipe. That is exactly what this is. And this recipe can't be found in
it's the secret
the
sauce.
global recipe book.
It's the Coca-Cola of aluminum.
That's it. It's Coca-Cola.
You got it. You figured it out.
You just figured it out. It's the aluminum Coca-Cola cans. Okay, we're done. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Frank Kimbler and Chuck Zukowski on the line with me right now. They went out to Roswell, found some metal bits. Now, listen, I'm going to have all your guys' information on the website, and we'll have links to the actual press release with all the pictures and stuff, because you did send a lot of pictures, and we appreciate that. What made you guys want to go back? You said you did this back, I believe, in 2000, Chuck. What took you guys back out there in the last few months?
Well, I mean, originally I did it like early 2000s. It was for a TV show on, I think it was Sci-Fi Channel. And we did archaeology digs there. And then after the archaeology dig was over, my sister and I did our own dig using strip digging methods, and we found a piece of metal. Had it analyzed back in 2000. Well, it was from 2002, and it was aluminum alloy. Then I did a press release a year later in Roswell, and Bigelow Aerospace picked up the piece of metal, and they held on to it for a year. Basically told me at the end that it was nothing, but within the first week, they had that piece of metal. They sent an email saying it was an unknown polymer based on common polymers. Doesn't mean it was unknown to the planet. It just means that it wasn't common.
Okay.
And their next step was isotope analysis, and then they sat on it for a whole year, and then came back and said, oh, it was nothing. Well, we later found out in 2017 that Robert Bigelow, Bass, B-A-A-S, they were contracted under the Pentagon. So he was being contracted through the Pentagon to look for UFO materials. Kind of interesting stuff. Frank and I have been going back and forth since 2002. I was helping him trying to analyze some of the stuff that he found. This guy, Frank, so he basically reverse engineered some of the information that we released from 2002 and found the site on his own. And went out there with his metal detector and started finding stuff. So, and he found some other cool stuff too. Go ahead and tell him, Frank.
Yeah, no, I found the stuff that's been found. I've been doing this for a little bit over a decade, and I have found...
Real quick, Frank, let me ask you one question, then lead into that. We know Chuck's interest in this, and we've had him on the show before, but how did you kind of get into this? What's the quick and dirty of that story for you?
The quick and dirty, when I moved out, I've always loved science fiction and flying saucers, and I saw flying saucer when I was in my early 20s when I was camped out at Ute Lake State Park. It was one of those nice UAPs that makes the right angle turns, and I'm going, holy smokes, we can't do that. So I've always been interested in, yeah, I know.
I've seen the same thing, so...
Yeah, always been interested in the UFO phenomena. When I moved out to Roswell, I went over to the International UFO Museum here, and they're good friends of mine now. And I got to looking through that, and I'm going, holy smokes, this is all cool, all kinds of first-hand eyewitness accounts, but where's the physical proof? And I'm going, cha-ching! I know what I'm gonna do in my spare time. I'm going to go out and look for pieces of stuff because I'm an old prospector at heart, so that's what I did, and that's how I got into this.
That's awesome. How many times have you guys been back out to that site?
I mean, I started going out to that site way back before 2000.
Okay. So you're familiar with the area is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been out there probably more than 30 times.
All right. Wow. Lucky.
Because I live close.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. Okay, so we've got the material. Didn't they say it was a weather balloon at one point?
Originally.
I hate that story.
Yeah,
okay, so what I want to ask about that is, Could your material come from anything like that? Would a
Well,
weather
no.
balloon be made of this?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean originally back in the 40s, they said it was a high altitude weather balloon. I think it's polyurethane was like a elastic type of material in the weather balloon. And then later on, they said that it wasn't a weather balloon; it was Project Mogul, which is a high altitude balloon chain, and the electronics isn't anything special. But it was a top secret program, not a top secret material, that basically looked for any type of above ground atomic testing from China or Russia. And they talked about, okay, that maybe that balloon at that time had like aluminum foil over the balloon, but that wasn't until the 50s. But this,
they had radar reflectors on that, but you have to understand they didn't use any special things for their radar reflectors. They were nothing more than plain, ordinary, good old-fashioned aluminum foil.
But let's say it was weather balloon, or whatever. But the explosive nature of these pieces, it's ridiculous, and anyway, basically, when the information came back in '47, and then they said they found a crashed disc, and then it was quickly changed to, oh no, it was a weather balloon. It was interesting because Colonel Blanchard at the time, who was in charge of Roswell Army Air Force Base, Walker Base, when he passed away as a 4-star brigadier general. So here's a colonel that couldn't identify couldn't tell the difference between a weather balloon and a flying saucer, right? Back in '47, yet he retired a 4-star brigadier general.
Wow.
So something's kind of fishy about this.
So I'm trying to, and I'm looking at this from just, asking the questions, not trying to shoot it down by any stretch of the imagination. But with these materials, they always talk about, when they investigate a explosion, they can, tell by, some of the chemicals and stuff that are left, what kind of explosive it was. Is there anything like that with this other than just, it looks like a blast pattern?
When you look at this material under a microscope, and I've looked at it many times, there are, I did a whole talk on explosive forensics.
Okay.
And there is, when you shoot a bullet through a piece of metal, it folds outwards. It's got an indentation and the other side folds outwards. Well, it has that. So
okay.
It has that kind of stuff. And then in addition to that, it has what's called explosive curling. The pieces of metal are curled around. And then the exciting part about this, from a geeky standpoint, is that when there's an explosion, the molecules inside an alloy get rearranged, and you can actually see that. And,
okay.
And I have pictures of that. So, yeah, there's more than just looking at it and saying, oh, this has been through trauma. There's actually enough explosive forensics to prove the fact that it's been through an explosion and it's been melted. You can actually see that.
I guess
that we've got.
Frank, I guess the question I was more asking, is there any chemical signature or something that it might say what exploded? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Not that you maybe
not
found yet, or again, it's a curiosity question more than anything.
Well, it's a good curiosity question. Other than the fact that we've found one unusual element in there that might be a marker for something. Chuck, do you want to tell them what that element was?
Are you talking about barium, or what are you talking about? Go ahead. You can explain that better than I can. Because when I saw it pop up, I went, what the hell is barium doing in there? That's usually what you see from atomic blasts.
Really?
Yeah, and Chuck hit this, hit the nail on the head for this one. In his analysis as well as mine, we've had barium show up, and I didn't think anything of it until another scientist contacted me. He's actually a metal scientist, and he said, I was talking to the nuclear people at the museum in Albuquerque, the Atomic Testing Museum, and they said, barium's like fallout material. I'm going, what? So there's a possibility that the barium that shows up is actually a marker that helps to date our metals. It might have been fallout from the first nuclear test. I don't know. It's sheer speculation. That's all it is. But barium is there.
And for the people listening to this, there is a fair amount of speculation. You guys have presented the evidence that, yes, we have found something. We've ran it through tests. This is what we've found. It's not, hey, oh my God, there's Martians from Venus here. Right?
No, not really. What we're saying is, what we found, we can guarantee that the story goes that something exploded there in 1947. And we have enough evidence to prove that story is correct because there's so many eyewitnesses, there's so much testimony from that 47. And that location, I mean, the GPS coordinates was originally given to me by Glenn Dennis, the mortician from 1947, when he was alive years ago when I knew him. And so we know that particular spot is what the witnesses said all the debris was that Mac Brazel picked up, and now we've actually found evidence of that. So we can verify the story. I can't verify, and Frank at this time can't verify that they're flying saucer material, but it's a big first step for us because we're saying, aha, something did crash there. We have the evidence that something crashed there, and the story's not dead. Just because it happened in 1947, it doesn't mean that you brush it under the rug. And with today's technology getting better and better in metal detectors, we're starting to find some of this stuff. And due to erosion over the years, some of the water that saturates in the ground can lift and push some of the metals up to the top of the soil. Frank actually explained that to me.
Oh yeah, it's not like prospecting for gold. These are lightweight alloys. They work their way to the surface many times in the right conditions, and they can actually get recycled. Cows can come up there and munch on the grass and ingest this stuff, and then do their duties out there. And this stuff can get recycled for years out there. And some of it's near the surface, some of it's buried deep. So that's what we look for.
It's kind of the same thing that we deal with in Iowa, where my friends who are all farmers, just big rocks work their way up to the surface, and they get clogged to the machine and all of that. Frank Kimbler and Chuck Zukowski on the line with me right now, talking about what they found at the Roswell Crash Site. And I think it is important to say that we're not just jumping to the conclusion it was aliens. And I think that's important because I think there's too many people that would make that jump. And I'm glad you guys aren't. I'm glad that it is a step-by-step. Hey, we found something. This is what we can tell you about this, and not make assumptions thereafter.
Exactly. I mean, we won't know until we know. But even if we came across this material that is completely unknown, we still can't say it's alien until we find some markers saying it's not from this planet. Because there's still those programs that the military has out there that kind of mucks with alloys.
Yeah.
That we don't know about. But the interesting thing is how far back does that go? Even the 3000 series alloys that Frank had talked about, the aluminum, the stuff that's kind of used in aluminum cans, that didn't come out to the mid-60s, Frank?
Actually, aluminum can alloys were 1954. I looked at that. So,
okay, 1954.
There's your trivia, everybody.
Yeah, but it's still years after 1947.
Yeah. All right,
so let's go real quickly. Let's just say our government, military did find something there just for the UFO enthusiasts out there, and then they reversed engineer it. If you follow Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, this was a highly decorated military person. He said that he worked in a reverse engineering department, and then his job was to filter material that was found in 1947 back into the industry. So if you want to believe that, then you could possibly think that maybe some of this stuff was filtered into them. But like I said, this is all speculation, and I'm not saying that's actually what happened. I'm just saying there's just a lot of information out there that we have to consider.
Chuck believes in aliens, everybody.
Really. I can prove the military was out there because military buttons have been found out there.
Yeah.
And they are the nice aluminum fatigue buttons that military back then would be wearing. Those buttons were they were in existence in the late 40s, early 50s, and they stopped using them. But there are military buttons that have been found out there.
All right, so my next question as we get towards the end of this, What's next? What does this stuff mean?
Well, it's just more testing. I mean, we're talking about isotope analysis. And Frank, why don't you go ahead and explain isotope analysis? Because I'm going to muck that up.
Oh, yeah, it's actually easy. Isotopes are kind of like fingerprints. And so fingerprints are unique for individuals, kind of like the little blood vessels and eyeballs and stuff like that. But isotopes are fingerprints. So we can look at something, an element called magnesium, and we can look at silicon, but magnesium is the easier one to do. We can look at the magnesium, the element magnesium, its isotope ratios, and we can look at that and see where it is. So there's different types of magnesium, and there's like 3 or 4 different kinds of those isotopes, and we can compare those, and we can tell. It's so good that we can tell where it came from, even what part of the Earth. Did it come from the ocean? Did it come from a mine over in Africa? Did it come from the moon? Did it come from Mars? Or did it come from someplace else? That's the kind of information that we need to nail this down, and that is our next step on this.
Now, if people want to follow along, obviously UFOnut.com is probably going to be the best place to go, right?
Yeah, because Frank's feeding me a lot of information. I mean, I just did anonymous metal alloy found at Roswell debris site. That was on August 4th. So if you go there, you'll see a couple of pieces of metal, see pictures of how desolate this area really is, and you'll see some of the lab analysis, because what Frank and I are doing is we put the information out to the public. We're not hiding anything, and we're not making a lot of money off of this. Matter of fact, it's all coming out of our pockets to do these lab analysis. Isotope analysis can be expensive. It could be starting at $500 just to start off, and then you've got to pay, for lab time after that. I was kind of like pricing it the other day. So, and then there's a protocol too. So this isn't stuff that we want to just send through the mail.
Yeah.
Because we have to paper trail it in person. So now you have to find a lab that will allow us to deliver it in person and watch them actually do it. Because if the isotope analysis pops up as not being able to find any place on this planet that it was created, there could be a protocol for some of these labs to directly contact the government for cases like this. I don't know. But if it's a lab that actually has military contracts, there may be a place, hey, if you come across anything that's very unusual, we need to know about it.
Or it just comes up in the computer or something, that it's a mark that they know or something.
Oh, yeah, and all of a sudden somebody gets an email.
Hey, I've got horror stories about stuff disappearing and lab results not being done the right way and things being messed up. So yeah, it's better to hand deliver this stuff and sleep with a gun under your pillow. So it's until you get the results back.
With this kind of stuff in your possession, is there any worries about stuff right now? Like, has it been weird the last couple months? I don't want to go as far as Men in Black staring you down, but I mean, is it? Have there been any concerns about having this in your possession?
Not so much. It was interesting that I was talking to a friend about that the other day. And he says, "What if they come in and just take it?" And I said, well, the fact that the government might be interested in it is a big plus for Frank and I. And they said, what would you do next? I said, we just go back out to the site and try some more.
Yeah.
I continue the lab analysis. So we have the area pretty much figured out, thanks to Frank, finding it in the past. So when we went out in the later part of June, I had purchased a metal detector very similar to the one that Frank has, and those type of metal detectors, the frequencies to find a particular metal, gold, really helps out with this particular aluminum. So my new metal detector picked up something within the first 20 minutes I was out there. I'd been out there multiple times with 2 different types of metal detectors, never picked up anything. So technology helps. As the technology increases, it's helping us find the stuff. We have an idea. Now, obviously, some of these pieces that we found, we're out to 4 or 5 hours, and so it's not something you can just run out there and just find and leave. You're going to spend some time, and you got to deal with the rattlesnakes and everything else out there too.
Yeah, it doesn't work The first time I went out there, I was out there for 6 or 8 hours before I found a single fragment. Imagine swinging a metal detector around. That takes some dedication to do that. So it's sometimes you'll find one. Sometimes you'll find none. I have been out there a couple of times and have found absolutely nothing, but other times you get lucky and you find 2 or 3 pieces in a day or more.
I think.
But
I was going to say, I think because recently there was New Mexico had a lot of rain, and we've had a lot of rain here in Colorado. So, maybe the water saturating the ground has helped it. And then also, aluminum alloys are very conductive to electricity, too. We had an event early in June where Frank picked up high levels of EMF in a certain area with our EMF detector, and that was a general area where he found a couple of pieces. So it's interesting. Weather conditions may excite some of this metal, could give off an EMF, maybe not. I don't know. This is all theory right now. We haven't really figured this out. But while we were there early in June, we were there shooting just like a little YouTube documentary. I had a couple of other people out there.
Yeah.
And the camera, they had issues with the camera, the audio guy, the batteries in his device died. And Frank looks at me and goes, "Chuck, did you bring your EMF detector?" I go, "Oh, yeah, I got my kit." And he runs right out there, and he was picking up different levels of EMF. Huh, Frank?
Wow.
It was crazy. The batteries were dying. I've never had that happen out there before, where just all the batteries died, all the equipment was shutting down, and it was like, I'm going, this is like nuts. Never had that happen before.
And then so Frank grabbed his metal detector. He was picking up some EMF, high levels of EMF, compared to ambient levels. And he says, "I'm going to grab my metal detector." And while he's doing that, I'm putting together my drone. And I take it over near him because I don't want to miss anything. And I put my drone together and I'm firing it up, and I'm getting errors. My drone won't lift, and I'm getting errors on my iPad. It's saying battery errors. It's saying all kinds of stuff. And then I got frustrated because I thought it was something I was doing wrong because I was so excited in the moment.
Yeah.
So I took it back to my truck, which is probably about 40 feet away. And I go, "I'm going to try it one more time just for the hell of it." And no errors, nothing. It just went right up. And I'm going, "Oh, I was trying to get this launched in the area that we lost batteries, that we picked up high EMF." And this happens a lot in when you do UFO investigations. We do lose batteries all the time.
Hey, I'm glad we didn't have pacemakers.
Yeah, exactly. But we have theories now. I mean, what if the memory metal back in the day that people talked about back in '47? What if this is part of that memory metal, but it has to be charged in a certain way for the memory, to be excited to go back to whatever it was, and over the years, the energy's dissipated. I mean, we don't know. This is just kind of like we're just kind of theorizing.
I dare you to.
We got some crazy ideas about this stuff. So, maybe it's all true. Who knows?
I don't know. But when you're brainstorming, one thing I've learned about brainstorming in the microchip industry is no matter how silly or stupid some of the ideas come out, you put them all down on paper because especially when it comes to ufology, we really don't know. So everything's on, laid out on the table, and then we kind of look at it and assess it.
It'd be interesting to take one of those Tesla coils out and just kind of scan the ground, because they'll do the ones with the antenna, it'll ground out.
Oh, I'm sure Frank's got a Tesla coil hiding somewhere.
I've got 3 or 4 of them sitting around here. I just haven't fired them up in a while.
I imagine you might need an extension cord to get out there, but Frank Kimbler and Chuck Zukowski on the line with me right now. Guys, we'll get all your information up on the website. I appreciate the talk so much, and I can't wait to hear what happens with this stuff.
I can't wait to tell you. We're excited.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about getting getting some more testing done and seeing what kind of results we get back, because this is cutting edge stuff for ufology. Physical evidence is hard to get. It's hard to test. It's expensive to test, and we hope that something will come out of this. Either way, it's anomalous. We've got stuff that's weird out there, and no matter what the tests come back, they've got to be able to explain why that high weirdness is there.
That's right. That's right. And it wasn't a weather balloon or even Project Mogul. It had to be something else. And we'll just leave it up in the air. But definitely can guarantee something did crash there.
Okay.
Now it's up to us to try and figure out what it is or what it was.
Frank, Chuck, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us on your program.
Yes, thank you for having us on.